Have you been looking for a way to stay focused on your goals and grow your MSP? Accountability groups from RocketMSP can help. We offer weekly accountability sessions that meet online with a group of your peers. Your success begins with accountability. Go to www.rocketmsp.io to join your accountability group today. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Rocket MSP podcast. I'm Steve Taylor, your host. Today I'm joined by Dale Walls. How's it going, Dale?
Doing great, man. How are you?
You know, I'm feeling good. I think I'm on a sugar high. So if I seem like I'm a little hyper or overly excited or anything like that, it's 100% sugar.
I'm gonna try to catch up here with some caffeine myself.
Yeah, see, and I don't even like coffee, so it is what's the sugar? I had some like Olive Garden leftovers, so I'm talking about legit like the sugars from the Alfredo sauce and stuff.
Right on.
I just feel it coursing through my veins. Cheese and sugar.
Well, let's put it to work. Let's put it to work.
Yes, I believe we should. So I appreciate you coming on here, man. I know that you have a company right now called Lion's Guide. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Lion's Guide. Yeah, I mean, the quick rewind, I founded and retired as CEO out from Corsica Technologies, one of the top, MSPs in the country. And afterwards, look, I'm still young, full of piss and vinegar. I'm 40 years old. I got a lot left to do. I didn't want to just sit back and do nothing rather. And, just through various like conversations and so on, I just, found out like just what I really enjoyed about just life as a CEO, I'll say, was just working with my direct reports, coaching them through challenges, problems, obviously a lot of them professional, in the operation, things that we're up against. And then sometimes it trickled over into personal, but I realized like in the latter years for sure, what really got me out of bed every day was just looking forward to my team meetings, my one-on-ones, like doing seminars with the whole company and talking about, doing training, whatever. And, like I said, I was working on a couple of different things. My wife started a coffee company and just kind of got a little bit of entrepreneurial flair, kind of out of the gate into retirement. And hell, I was going to make t-shirts, I was like, man, I want some cool t-shirts with this design. And, I was working with a guy just on a brand design really. And he's like, he kind of challenged me. He's like, Dale, like you've been in leadership for 20 years. You grew a company like into, the stratosphere. Like, what the hell are you doing? You're going to go make t-shirts now? Like people could really get a lot out of, you teaching them, coaching them, whatever. And it did click. That's when it kind of hit me. I was like, yeah, man, I do love working with people and kind of helping them and just shedding, my experience and perspective that maybe it will help them and just find a way. I mean, so that's what I did. I took what was going to be, just t-shirts I wanted. And if someone else wanted to buy them, whatever, and turned it into a coaching, advisory, online training company. It's been a blast. I mean, I came out official in February after I finished my transition out of Corsica and went right into it and picked up clients right away. And now this is what I'm doing every day. I'm working with people that are in demanding roles, right? When you're the owner of a business, let's say, or you're in a top executive position, whatever, you're in a position that's demanding. Number one, it's a lonely place to be, right? You don't have a lot of people that you could talk to about it, right? It's just a lonely place. So having someone that you can turn to, go, man, I'm struggling with this challenge, and having someone to work through, and go through that. So I'm really focused on folks that are just in those positions of high demand, whether an entrepreneur, a business owner, a top exec, or whatever, someone that's just got a lot on their plate, and wants some coaching, training, so on, and leadership, personal development, things like that.
Got it. So, love everything that you're saying, because I love helping people too, man. That's why I do this. It's fun for me. I was good. My my collar is going to be like that today, and it's going to keep flipping up this whole time. So this will be interesting. So that's like the fifth time I've fixed it. Um, so yeah, I was the guy that I would I was terrified of selling. Okay, because I didn't want to hear the words no
Sure.
or get out. So instead, I would just find things to do to keep myself feeling busy.
Yeah.
So I'd switch from Autotask to ConnectWise. Then I'd switch to Kaseya, and then let's switch my antivirus this time. And every 3 to 6 months, I'm finding something new to do. And that is clearly not the solution to building for scale.
Sure.
You're never even going to get a bunch of clients. I mean, let alone serve them poorly. You're just never going to have clients if you never go out and ask for people's money.
Absolutely. No money, no mission, right? Like no money, no business, no money, no mission, no money, no service, right? It is a lifeline, it's the necessary evil of getting into business.
People are saying they can barely hear me. So did I get louder, Dale?
I can hear you. I can't hear myself, so I don't know how it compares with that. I can hear you. It's not too soft, but
okay. Well, I turned it up. We'll see. Hopefully that fixes it. Gavin, feel free to let me know if it's still bad. I'll be able to fix that in post-production for the podcast at least. So today we're going to talk about your time at Corsica a little bit, and then we're going to talk about some of the philosophy that kind of you got to work with, utilize, develop in order to turn Corsica into the powerhouse that it was. So for those of you wondering, this isn't going to be like a fluff piece. I'm actually going to ask Dale like real questions that you guys want to know. So feel free to pop questions into the chat if you have some. So can you tell us like some metrics about Corsica? Size of the company, revenue, employees, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in its final year that I was their CEO, we were up pre-COVID, of course. We were up near 200 employees, over $30 million of revenue. We were in multiple regions. Yeah, I mean, the high level stats, absolutely. That's where we were. Started from nothing. I know a lot of people get into questions around like, capital, startup. I started with an ad in the Yellow Pages and an agreement to pay my cousin who was out of a job that I would pay him minimum wage when he wasn't billing, and I'd pay him $15 an hour when he was billing. And so he had an incentive to get out there and bill. I had an ad in Yellow Pages, and meanwhile, I was working full time. So I knew there was an opportunity out there. And look, we're talking. I started what became Corsica when I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. What I did in the Marine Corps was tactical data networking. So I was in, I'll say, IT at a time when IT was everything, right? I can run fiber. I can build web pages. I could build servers. I mean, just, my job as a Marine was to do all of the above. That was help desk, server administration. And through that time, so I was in the Marine Corps from 98 to 2002. So there's a lot of tech changing there. I mean, broadband's hitting the streets, Exchange, so I got to take, a 7,500 user in a network in the Marine Corps. While I was there, we went from Banyan Vines to Exchange on NT, from NT into Active Directory. I just went through some really foundational times that molded the rest of, what we're doing today in tech. And then I was fortunate to be in a position that I wasn't pigeonholed into just pulling cable all day or, working on the servers all day. It was everything in between.
That's really cool. I think I might have fixed the volume issue. We're gonna hope for the best here.
Sounds a little better.
That's good. I'll take better. So you said you kind of started with nothing. So day one, you had an ad in the paper or Yellow Pages, and you had an agreement with your cousin. You said to pay him even minimum wage. And was that 40 hours a week?
Yes. Yes, it was. That was my commitment. So, and even before that, I would say, before I incorporated what became Corsica, I was operating as sole proprietor. So I was networking with folks that I was just meeting out in town, and I was doing work after hours, right? I was finding small businesses that, my first client and project was a leasing company owner out in Southern California that, literally it was just at a event. I think we were at a UFC pay-per-view or something. And he was like, man, you're in tech, this damn BlackBerry, my calendar says this and my BlackBerry says that, back when we all had BlackBerries. And, he was just, I was like, hey, I'll Monday evening, buy a case of beer, I'll come in and we'll knock that out. And that was like my first taste of like what I knew and the service of others. Right. So to where we kind of started here, like serving others. I only recently realized like what I really liked about what I was doing was the service of, I wasn't really geeking out about the tech. I'm super technical, right? I don't geek out about the tech. I get my thrills out of taking that tech and solving people's problems with it, right? And that fulfillment that you get from that. And that was my first taste of it, So here I go in, a guy had a small business server from Dell, like back then, that's what everyone, they bought this, Microsoft small business server from Dell and they didn't know what to do with it. They just plugged it in and, it's running pop email and all this other stuff. And they got a BlackBerry. They don't know why it doesn't work. And so I went in there and I spent a couple hours and just did the magic stuff I did. It was easy to me. I did it every day. I was running a 7,500 user, exchange farm, so got in there and he was just like, I was his hero, and that was it. And as I was transitioning, and I did a couple other projects like that. So while I was still in the Marine Corps, I had like 6 clients, again, just servicing them myself after hours, billing them by the hour, just getting some extra side money or whatever. And I was out on Torrey Pines golf course with my wife. Tiger Woods was big at the time and the thing to see. Not that I was a big golfer, but it was like, if you can go see Tiger Woods, go see him. I remember today we were walking on Torrey Pines there, and I told my wife, I said, I was about the EAS. I said, when we go back home, I'm gonna start my own business. And from there, came back to Maryland, and that's when I said, okay, let's start planting some seeds, and did that.
That is really cool, man. So you started the business. What happened with like clients? How long did it take for you to? So no, wait. You already had like 6 clients when you started the business. So that's how you were able to pay your cousin.
No.
Sort of.
No. So I had that money there, and that was hourly, right? So this is, timing wise, this is 2002, right? So the industry of managed services really wasn't that, it was in its infancy, in a big way. And so we were still hourly, how I was able to pay my cousin was, just being frugal on my own and getting my own, business plan together, and look, even at the time, I was 22 at the time, which I hated. Like when you go into the bank and asking for loans, I'm like, write your business plan. I don't want to write a damn plan. I want to just give me the money. I'll go to work. I'll get this thing going. I know what I need to do. But in so many ways, I had put together a business plan, and I had looked at just the math, of just living well within my means so that I had something left over so I could start this thing, right? Like, so I could, get going. So in the beginnings, it was that, as I did that, we grew clients and we were doing hourly. And like I said, back then it was, this is pre-Facebook, Google even then was at its infancy. We probably didn't even know what SEO was at the time, if it even was a thing. So the ad in the yellow pages, I started networking, local chamber of commerce, talking with business owners, and just sourcing out what the problems were and just being able to, like, that's where my technical ability came in, right? That I could go, yeah, I know how to fix that. Would you like me to fix it? And, then I would just kind of employ my cousin and against the needs that came in. So being frugal, a little bit further down the line, I ended up contracting myself into a government staffing job. So I'm in the Baltimore, DC area. So there's a lot of government contract work here, obviously a lot of IT. So I contracted myself in as a 1099 at a decent hourly rate. again, kept my modest salary and took the leftover and just dumped it into the entity, into Corsica, and use that just to start building it, hiring, so on.
Very nice. So that's an excellent way to get started. Obviously, everyone should kind of live well within their means, and everyone should always do their best to pay themselves a salary. And I think it's also important to pay yourself a reasonable salary too, and make sure that there's still profit left over for the business to utilize to hire people or upgrade your computer or whatever you need for the business, right? I mean, eventually you're going to need to buy a bunch of computers when you land a big project. And do you really want to go to the client and say, okay, so all I need is a check from you for $35,000? Now,
Sure.
me personally, I don't have a problem doing that because I'm not a flipping bank. If they want a loan, they can use a credit card.
Right. No, and look, and those are the things I think, every entrepreneur, MSP, IT company, whatever, needs to understand, right? One of the things that I work with people and advise, like, look, okay, the minute you transition from being that tech and you want to go out and do your own thing, so you go do that, you start your own business. Well, you actually ceased being a tech and you started being a business owner, right? Your job changed. Now, in your new capacity with your new business, you may need to play the role of a technician, but you're not going to be able to outsource or get away from the fact that you are now that business owner. That's your job.
Absolutely.
In that business. So now those things like that business plan, the reinvestment back into the business, the hiring, all those, the cash flows is what I was looking for there. So cash flow, right? And setting yourself up for success, in having a plan, those things, like you can't just go start, installing servers and forget about the rest. It's going to come back. Even you make the point about paying yourself a salary. I mean, I'm not a tax advisor here, but you have to pay yourself a fair, reasonable salary, right? Especially if you have profits coming in. It's expected, So it's things like that you learn. Taxes, I know a lot of young business owners myself. That tax thing, if you don't understand business now that you're a business owner and tax implications of that, right? That's something else that you've got to actually be putting those profits aside to pay the tax bill that's coming, right? Depending on how you set your entity up. So there's so much from a perspective of that transition into being a business owner that you really have to take it serious that you're a business owner now. And yes, you're technical, and yes, you can deliver those services. But that's not your main job anymore, if that makes sense.
So when people say to you, I know I need to pay myself a reasonable salary, and I know that I need to live within my means, but like my business has all these bills and my personal life has all these bills, and I'm throwing, some of these bills into a hat and picking to see which ones I'm going to pay this month. What can I do?
When it comes to things like that, look, that's why I say, start it on the side, right? If that's the problem, like if that's your problem, like you don't have a ton of capital savings to kind of have a year plan, to get this thing going and how you're going to take that capital and put it to work to hopefully to get it growing before it's gone, in 101 business planning, keep your job. And work with partners and find ways to grow your business. Or maybe, look, there's still, if you think even the timing on when I got started at 2000, we're at that kind of 20-year mark where that first, 10 years where there's a lot of new businesses starting up. There may be still some time and material shops that are out there on the market that may be looking to get out. So maybe, and if they were a time and material business, they probably don't have a strong exit plan, right? So maybe go partner with one of them and go, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Where are you at, in your journey? You've been doing this, computer repair shop for, 20 years now. I know you have some clients. Let's talk about that. That might be an opportunity to go, transition, a business that's, hourly. So it's not worth a ton But it's got a very loyal client base, right? That client base is there. They're sticking with this guy. They're paying hourly, whatever. But they may be hungry and interested in a transition to an MSP. So maybe working out some sort of partnership agreement that's a buyout of sorts and things like that.
Excellent. All right. Since we're talking about money, don't worry, nothing ridiculous. How much did you end up having to utilize your savings at all to invest into the company to get things up and running?
No. Like I said, once I contracted myself in a full-time role, and that revenue was now generated by my entity. Now I had revenue coming in that I built with. So I didn't start with any capital. I used what was coming in. Again, I kept my salary modest for what. So I had a job, right? And then I got asked for a government gig, like, hey, what do we got to do to keep you? And I said, well,
got it.
Hire my company and keep me in here, and then I, like I said, then I was a 1099. I got to charge my rate, right? My service rate, it wasn't about my salary anymore. It was like, hey, what do we got to do to keep you? Hire me by a service hourly rate. And then I got to keep my salary and take the rest and build the business.
Got it. So when you first started, I'm gonna talk more about when you were full time in your business. Okay.
Sure.
So how many hours a day, days a week do you feel like you were working for those first couple of years?
So my transition to full time. So again, I was working full time billing and hired my cousin. He was my first employee. My second employee was actually my wife, right? Because now we had a growing business. A few months in, we got clients. Now the tech's in the field. We need someone to field the calls, schedule the tech. And over time, as those demands grew, I saw the business grow and I said, hey, okay. So one, yes, I'm working full time. I'm commuting to, at the time, DC. So I got a 3-hour round trip commute. So I'm working full time, the 3-hour round trip commute. And then I'm getting back and I'm helping with server projects. We're staging servers, workstations, whatever. So in the beginning, it was whatever it took. It was whatever it took, whatever needed to get done. So was that the 60, 80 hour week? Yes. It was whatever it took to get it done.
And how did this change? At what point did you stop having to work 60 to 80 hours a week?
So, the beauty of the opportunity I took to get started was I owned that position, so to speak, right? I had a contracted position to fill. So I don't recall exactly when, but at one point, we're growing the commercial side of the business. In fact, I started the business, especially when I got back here, I failed to mention is I thought I was going to go be a government contractor, right? I'm a service disabled veteran. At the time, there's the initial law bills were being passed to make service disabled veteran set asides. 3% of all government contracting was supposed to go to 3% to service disabled veteran firms. And here I was like, hey, here I am. So I thought I was going to do that, but that industry that became MSP was taken off like a rocket, right? So even though I had started the business thinking that, but I put the ad in the papers and started serving commercial clients, and that demand was growing so fast. And as that business was growing, I found myself, 2, 3, 4 employees or whatever while I'm working full time. I just kind of hit me one day and goes, wow, okay, look how far we're going when I'm working full time over in this contracting gig. What could it be if I was throwing that 40 hours a week plus travel plus commute into the business, the core business. And so it did the same thing. So now I said, okay, well now I'll go capture. What I did was went and replaced myself on that contract. So I recruited someone, staffed them in that role. So now I got to keep the revenue, right? Now that revenue now goes to someone else's salary instead of mine, but the other revenue comes in that helps sustain bringing me over on my now, I'll say commercial salary. And then, that was it. But now the business has all of my attention, right? It's not just when I get back at the end of the day and on the weekends. Now it has 100% of my attention, every day of the week.
So at what point, like what year marker do you feel like your thought process was like, oh man, I really have something here. This has gotten big, and now I need to start organizing things, or else as I continue to grow, as this company continues to grow, we're just going to grow into more bad habits.
Well, what was funny is I would say it was probably around, so this was, I incorporated the company. I got out of the Marines 2002, incorporated 2003. I would say it was between 2005, 2006 timeframe. And this will be a little bit laughable, right? So I came from enterprise IT, and I was used to using enterprise tools, SMS, Semantic, Enterprise Edition, these things that were made for domain environments, right? Mm-hmm. So again, if you think timing, there's not a ton of mainstream RMM tools at this time, right? This industry, it's still fresh. So I'm running systems as if without an RMM, right? I'm installing these corporate tool, backup exec, Semantic Enterprise Edition, all these corporate tools that I knew were solid for the commercial, for the business workplace, and I was employing them as such. But that, was absent that RMM feature, right? Now we're remoting into all these individual systems, managing them individually, checking them individually. We're setting up various, I think IP Century back then, maybe. Oh, boy. It's been a while, right? I'm thinking like, I'm using IP Century. I'm using our ticketing system was a VBB board, right? Where, we would log service calls as topics as private VB, right? Because back then we're all like pre-social, all us nerds. Where were we talking? We were on BBB boards, right? And IRC and, all these things. So I was using all those things at the time to build this, cobbled together MSP, right? Instead of a PSA, I had a VBB board, right? Instead of a monitoring system, I had IP Century, checking in. We were setting up, you could, back then you could set up Messenger, the Messenger service, to send alerts to different things. And we were having those things forward up to us. So we cobbled it together. So to get to your question, where I had to break through was I literally got cold called by Enable, still around today. And it was about 2006. I got cold called from Enable going, "Hey, we're an RMM." I'm like, "What's an RMM?" You're like, "Oh, it's this, that, and the other for managed service companies." I'm like, "What's a managed service company?" So I didn't even know. Like I thought I was just doing, I was taking my enterprise IT management mindset and I was serving different small, medium businesses, right? And using the technology I knew. And then these guys call me and go, "Yeah." And I literally was like, "What's an MSP?" And then they tell me, and I'm like, I've been an MSP before I even knew it was an MSP. Like, know. And then they enlightened me, right? Then they're like, "Okay, well, let me show you what RMM can do." And that was like, boom, that's what we need. We need a system that, regardless of the domains authentication, that can talk to them all, right? So that empowered us there. They introduced us to Autotask at that point, right? What's a PSA? Mm-hmm. Well, boom, here's a ticketing system. Same thing, right? You're serving multiple clients in one ticketing system. Whereas in corporate, we were used to just having those internal, like Trackit and things like that were a system for an organization. The RMM, pre-RMM, I was using SMS, if you know that systems management server from Microsoft, again, a corporate tool to remote into systems, gather inventory, all the things that an RMM does. So it was that time, 2006, I transitioned and also got educated by them, right? One of the things that I loved about Enable, Gavin Garbett at the time, David Weeks, all these guys, Marco, people that now educated me on how I could take it to the next level, right? I knew the tech, I knew the enterprise tool, I knew the mindset of management, systems management. But now they taught me the business of an MSP, the real business, right? Because at the time I'm selling block hours, I'm doing all this old school, like low risk stuff, right? So what I loved about Enable is, aside from the technology, they had Enable University, which was an online course that taught you like, hey, This is how you do sales. Here's how you build your contracts. Here's how you build your calculators. And all that stuff was things that I was trying to invent. I was trying to figure it out. So they gave me this playbook, if you will, for me to mold as my own, right? And I think that's important for everyone to know. All these companies out there are going to give you the way they want to see you do it. But man, take that and make your own, because you're going to have competing interests. Microsoft, your Microsoft, account manager is going to want to see you pushing this, and your other company is going to want to see you pushing that. But at the end of the day, this is your company, right? And they're your clients. And more importantly, you're serving your clients' problems, right? So what the vendor wants to sell might not match up with what your client problems are today. And that's what you got to stay focused on. You got to focus on what your clients active, solving their problems, not pushing tech on them. If there's new tech that will solve problems for your clients, yeah, look, I'm not naive in that regard, but don't just because, Microsoft wants you doing X, or, the ConnectWise wants you pushing this, whatever, serve your clients first, right? And if there's alignment between the objectives of these software and hardware vendors out there, if there's alignment there, yeah, man, win-win. But otherwise, you got to keep the main thing. And the main thing is solving your clients' problems, not your vendor sales problems.
Have you been looking for a way to stay focused on your goals and grow your MSP? Accountability groups from RocketMSP can help. We offer weekly accountability sessions that meet online with a group of your peers. Your success begins with accountability. Go to www.rocketmsp.io to join your accountability group today.